All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending today's workshop on Social Security. I need to click my buttons here. How to do this? There we go. Oh, my computer is bouncing around. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Just getting this thing all set up and ready to go. Thank you, everybody, for attending today's workshop. Today, we're going to be talking about Social Security and taxes. My name is Mark Roberts. I'm the owner of several different financial companies here in town. My parent company is called Affinity Asset Management, but we're not here to really talk about my parent company. I'm here today representing my nonprofit right here, F3E. It stands for the Foundation for Financial Education. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Trust me, I'm not asking for handouts or donations. We are completely self-funded, but it's my way to be able to get out in the community and talk about topics that are important and relevant and not have to deal with the political stuff of my industry, because when you're securities licensed, there's things that we're encouraged not to talk about. We are encouraged not to talk about taxes. We are encouraged not to talk about Social Security, because these things don't really allow us to sell products that make us money or make the industry money. So for 24 years that I've been doing this, it's been highly encouraged for these are topics that we don't talk about, and we need to talk about selling investments and managing investments, and that's how we make our money. So having said that, let me tell you a little bit about myself. We're doing this for 24 years. We own the third largest financial advisory firm in Kansas City. We're completely independent. So that means I work for you guys. I don't work for any home office on what I sell. I've been in lots of publications like Barron's Magazine and Ingram's Magazine. Been in lots of internet-based stuff all over the United States. Tons and tons of data out there that we put out there. I'm also the only licensed person in Kansas City that's ever gotten a book published. It's titled Why Didn't I Hear About This Earlier? I wrote this book 4 years ago. At that point, I was probably 19 years to 20 years into my career. And the number one question that people always ask me, well, gosh, Mark, if it's that easy, why doesn't my financial advisor tell me that? Well, Mark, if it's that easy, why doesn't my CPA tell me this? Mark, if it's that easy, why doesn't HR talk about this? So I wrote this book because it's a simple way for me to kind of explain tax law and strategies in simplistic terms in a way that makes sense for everybody. So I'm not here to try to sell my book. I'm just trying to here to give you some credibility. Not only did I write this book, and it's very difficult to write a book, it also made it to Amazon's #1 bestseller list. That is also a very rare feat to get onto. So really nice, easy read book. So I just want to point that out. In today's workshop, we're going to talk about Social Security. We're going to talk about taxes. I've been doing this presentation for years. This is the first time I've done a webinar version of it. Normally we'll travel around to different parts of Kansas City once a month and put this on at local libraries or community centers. Just something I do kind of behind the scenes and donating my time back to the community on talking about this stuff. So bear with me, I'm not used to doing this webinar based. I do a lot of other things webinar based, but not Social Security. But for you guys, I would ask you to get pen and paper, because you will need to make some notes on a few things. I'm going to specifically ask you to write down a few things, but more importantly, you just may be a note taker, may not be, but there are a couple things I'm going to ask you to write down. You're here for a Social Security workshop. We're going to talk about Social Security. We will not be done in 1 hour. It's going to go a little bit long, so please bear with us for that, just because this is a lot of really cool data. When we're done with this, I hope your attitude is, oh my gosh, that was very easy. I learned a ton from him in like an hour and 15 minutes, and I learned more from this guy in a webinar than I had in years and years from anybody else. That's what I'm hoping you'd get out of this. Having said that, we're going to talk about taxes today too. The first, let's call it 75% of what I'm going to talk about today is going to be on Social Security, and the last 25% is going to be on taxes. Here's my promise to you. You're going to say the taxes was the better part. When we follow up with you after today's webinar and you want to talk to us and get your questions answered, one of the questions I always ask is, hey, you came to a Social Security webinar, but we talked about Social Security, we talked about taxes. By the time we were done, what was your favorite part? And I would say 9 times out of 10, everybody always says it's the tax part. Because it's way more impactful. There's so much more cooler things you can do with the tax part. So the best part will be at the end. So bear with me on that. Let me show you this. Here is, if I can get it up on the camera. This is what a Social Security analysis looks like. Everybody on this webinar that has signed up on this webinar is going to get one of these for free. If you Google Social Security calculators, and there's a whole bunch of them out there on the internet, you can go get for free. But they're only going to take into account very basic stuff on Social Security. Again, I've been doing this for 24 years. This is the only software I have ever found that takes into account all Social Security strategies. For you, for your current spouse, or if you were married to a previous spouse, what's called spousal benefits. Maybe you were married and divorced. Maybe you were married and widowed. All of that. There are 567 Social Security strategies. Yes, that's a lot. 567 strategies. This is the only software that takes into account all 567. So everybody on this webinar is entitled to get this. We are not pitching products. We are not selling anything here today. This is our way to give back. We don't charge for this. We have to gather a couple of basic pieces of information from you after today's webinar. If you want this, we have to get that so we can run the analysis. And then we're happy to go over it with you, email it to you, mail it to you, whatever you prefer. We'll get you a copy of this at no cost. All right. Oh, my thing is jittery again here. All right. 2 types of tax system that our United States system has. Number one is we have taxes for the informed, and then we have taxes for the uninformed. I think that's just par for the course with anybody. The more knowledge you have, the more you can save on taxes. All right. Here's what I want you to write down, what you see on the screen, or you can see right here. I want you to write this down because our taxes, our Social Security is taxed one of 3 different ways, 0, 50, and 85%. Now what that means is if my income is from here and below, my entire Social Security check that I get in retirement is tax-free, no taxes at all. However, if my income falls in here, Social Security, pension, investments, part-time job, my spouse's job, whatever it is, if my income falls in this range, now half of my Social Security is taxed, half is tax-free. Gosh, Mark, well, how much tax do I pay? Well, that depends on your tax bracket. Whatever bracket that you're in and the tax bracket you're paying on that, half your Social Security will be taxed at that bracket. And then if your income's from here and above, now 85% is taxed. That's very key because there's only 3 brackets for Social Security. And it's very easy to go from 0 to 50 or from 50 to 85. And those are big jumps. We have folks all the time in retirement call us up, asking to take money out of their accounts because they need to live on it every month. Maybe they need to get a new air conditioner, fix their roof, go on vacation, buy themselves a new car. There's all kinds of reasons people reach in and take out money out of their accounts in retirement time. Well, somebody could be squarely like right here in this particular bracket. And then they call us up and they want to take a withdrawal, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, whatever it is for an expense they have coming up. Now, we'll tell them that it's going to take a couple days. It'll be deposited directly in your bank account. We'll withhold the taxes, and they know the taxes is going to be accounted for. They know all that, and we tell them that. But what advisors don't tell people is, oh, hey, by the way, this could go up to here next year. And next year, your Social Security tax bracket will be 85% because you just crossed over that threshold by just a little bit. Because you crossed over that threshold just a little bit, next year, your Social Security is going to be taxed 35% higher, going from 50 to 85%. So knowing this might make a difference as to what accounts we take withdrawals from, what accounts to minimize the taxes when we take those withdrawals from. All that kind of stuff matters. So our Social Security is taxed one of 3 different ways. So I want you to be aware of that. Write that down. This is an example of what I was just showing you here. This is the Social Security analysis that you see on the screen here. Now, let me get my pens here. Okay. So when we do a Social Security analysis, we're going to tell you what your benefits are for yourself, for your spouse. We're going to walk you through all that. And that's going to come down here, and we're going to show you all of this. And we're going to show you if you start collecting Social Security at 62, how much you get. If you start collecting Social Security at full retirement age, what do you get? If you wait until 70, what do you get? If you do some kind of a strategy where you're implementing strategies, I'm going to go into Social Security, and I'm intentionally going to sign up for this option here, but I'm going to go back to Social Security in a few years, schedule another appointment, go back in and change it to another option. And you're going to go to Social Security, and I got access to this, and I got access to this. Well, it's obvious I want this much from Social Security. But no, the obvious answer is not always the correct answer all the time. A lot of times we want to take this amount for Social Security. Well, gosh, Mark, why do I want to take less income out of Social Security? Because if I take this option, this bigger option gets left alone to grow and grow and grow and get bigger. And then I'm going to go back into Social Security, I'm going to refile my paperwork, stop taking this, start taking this, and then live out the rest of my life taking this much higher income for the rest of my life. If I asked you for a show of hands, nope, I see you. Somebody just raised their hand. Put your hand down. I'm just teasing you. I don't see you. But if I asked you a show of hands, what's more important to you? For me to show you how to get this biggest check out of Social Security, or for me to show you how to collect the most amount of money out of Social Security in a lifetime? You'd always say the second answer. How do I get the most amount of money out of Social Security in my lifetime? Okay, so this analysis helps us take that into consideration. Now here's the catch. This analysis, as good as it is, as accurate as it is, and the only one of a kind that takes into account all 567 strategies, as good as this thing is, this only looks at Social Security. This doesn't take into account your goals, your 401ks, your IRAs, your other investments, your pension. It doesn't take that kind of stuff into consideration. So later when I get in the presentation, I start talking about tax saving strategies that you can do for yourself while you're alive, and then you incorporate the tax saving strategies into the Social Security strategies, and you get those two to start to coordinate together, you're going to see how much better your income is going to be in retirement time with tax saving strategies and then maximizing Social Security strategies. And sometimes we're going to encourage you to take an option on Social Security that doesn't jive or coordinate with this analysis. We're going to do something different because what we want to do is maximize your personal accounts, the investments you have, the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, the IRAs, 401ks that you manage. You have an advisor that manages. We want to show you how you can maximize those things by what you do with Social Security. So you'll learn a little about some of that in today's presentation. All right, you're going to be seeing here in just a minute a pop-up option that's going to come up on the screen here in just a minute that you can schedule an appointment directly with us. Now, in my office, I have 3 other advisors that I have personally trained on all things Social Security and taxes on this stuff. They've been with me for a long time, and they are awesome. When you schedule an appointment with us, you will get one of the 4 of us, and I'm going to show you what it's going to look like. You're going to get an option that pops up on your screen that looks like this, where you get to pick the day of the month. Then you get to select, if I can change the page here, you get to pick the time of the day that you want. You get to put in your information, put in your name, put in your email address, any little information that you want us to know, you can type in that box, and then you click schedule event. And what it does is it pops up a confirmed button, so you can see that you got confirmed your appointment. So let's pop up here real quick the opportunity so they can see that. And then boom, it should be popping up on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. It's got a picture of me. It's a green box that says schedule here. What you need to do is you click the green button to schedule the appointment with me. For right now, if you don't want to schedule, that's fine. You can just click the X in the top right-hand corner, exit out of that. But that's going to pop up a couple more times in the presentation. So after you've heard enough of this, you realize, oh, I need to schedule something. I need to schedule an appointment with these guys. I just want to tell you, again, we're not selling anything and there's no product pitching. We just need to talk to you, get your personal questions answered, probably ask you a few questions so that we can run the Social Security analysis. We'll email it to you. We'll go over it with you. In today's coronavirus world, even though things are starting to be lifted and we can kind of go back out in society, I just want you to know I'm still not ready in my office to have appointments with people live face-to-face right now. So what we're doing is we're doing meetings like this where it's webinar-based. We can talk to you on the phone. We can see each other on the computer. We can do these things. I have several employees who have had cancer or their spouse has cancer, and because of that means their immune system is weakened. And we just want to be safe. We just don't want to be around any more people than we absolutely have to. So we're just keeping our distance. And right now we can still talk to people and educate people through technology like what you're on here today. And so your first meeting with us will be either on the phone or it could be a Zoom meeting like this, just to gather some facts, answer some questions. We'll make it easy for you one way or the other. So when you schedule that appointment, that's what that's for. You'll be connected with one of us and we will make ourselves available. Plus you'll get a phone call from Stacy in our foundation. She's going to call you just to confirm the time slot. If we need to adjust it or move it, she's going to tell you who the appointment is with, tell you what to expect. Maybe if you have a couple questions, she can quickly answer some questions for you, but just so you can connect directly with our foundation and get any questions answered right away. All right, so having said all that, let's jump into the presentation. Now, first off, on Social Security, there's lots of terms with Social Security, but there's 2 terms that I find that are kind of misleading. I don't like the terminology of it. The first one is called full retirement age. Now, people assume full retirement age means when I get to that age, I'm going to get my full check. I'm going to get my full benefits. No, that's not correct. You can start Social Security as early as 62, and every year you delay it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So technically, if you want to know what your biggest check is age 70. If you're willing to wait until 70, that's when you'll collect the biggest check. Full retirement age has everything to do about income. Reduced benefits because you have a job. You have a job, you're collecting Social Security, that job's income can penalize your Social Security. So for today's workshop, let's just assume everybody on this webinar, we're going to call full retirement age 66 for right now. For me, my full retirement age is 67 and 10 months, but let's just say 66. That means if you are under 66, you are 65, 64, 63, 62, and you are collecting your Social Security, but you're still working, if your income is too high, your Social Security will be reduced. So if you're over 66, you are 66 and above, you can collect Social Security, and then your job won't penalize you. Okay? So having said that, just want to kind of put that in there. The second term is what's called primary insurance amount. Also goofy terms. You know the Social Security check that we get every month in retirement time? You and I would just call it our Social Security check. If you look at your bank statements, it literally says Social Security. But the Social Security Administration doesn't call it your Social Security check. They call it your primary insurance amount. Now, I say this is goofy because I don't know what is insurance about our retirement check, but that's what they call it, primary insurance amount. So as I'm getting into this, I want you guys to look at the right side of your screen. If your screen is set up correctly, the left side is the presentation. The middle section, you have a picture of me talking to you. And on the right side of that, you're going to have a section over there where you have Q&A. Let me show you what you're looking at. You see a button that says Q&A. If you click that button, then down on the bottom there, it's going to say ask a question. Type me in a question. Do me a favor, I'm talking, so I can't talk and read long questions. But type me out a question. I'm going to do my best to answer it right there, or I'm going to come back a little bit later in the presentation and answer it a little bit later for you. But that's a private question from you to me, and only I can see that. But type me your question. So anything I'm talking about, don't hesitate to ask me a question. Next to the Q&A button, there's a button there that says handouts, and I apologize for that. That's kind of weird terms. We're not giving you handouts. There's no handouts on this because it's all electronic. It's web-based. But if you click on handouts, what it does do is it gives you an access that says view offer and get your social security analysis. That just means how you schedule an appointment. Like we just popped up on the screen a minute ago to schedule an appointment. It'll pop up a couple more times on the webinar that you can do that. But anytime you want, you can just click the word handout on the right side and then click what's called view offer. And that's view offer scheduling your appointment with us to talk to us and get your personal questions answered. And then that way we can get you your social security analysis. So Q&A and handouts, that's what that means on the right side. All right, let's go into this. 3 things to ask yourself about when you're ready to collect Social Security is, are you still working or not? What's your life expectancy? And more importantly, the biggest one of those 3 is married. Are you married or have you ever been married? Did you know if you're married or divorced that you can collect off your previous spouse? There's a catch though. You had to have been married to that previous spouse for 10 years. If you were not married for 10 years, then you don't access that spouse. However, you've been married for 10 years, you've been divorced, you want to go claim off your ex-spouse, you can. That ex-spouse will never know you're collecting off of their spouse. It could be an ugly divorce, it could be a nice divorce. Either way, they'll never know because you collecting off your spouse, your ex-spouse, it doesn't affect them. So you collecting off of yourself or you collecting off them won't impact their Social Security at all. But you know what? They can do the same thing. They can collect off themselves or they can collect off you, and you'll never know because it doesn't affect you. That's why if it doesn't affect them, it's not a big deal. But that's why we want this information on here. Now, if you remarried and you're on marriage number 2 or marriage number 3, let's say, you lost access to the previous spouses. You only have access to the spouse you're married to, and if you're not married, it's the previous spouse. It's the last spouse that you're married to for 10 years. So that's the key is, are you married? And if I ask to show of hands here, who is married or ever has been married, everybody's probably going to raise their hands, or at least most people will. So that means if you're married or ever have been married, you have 567 Social Security strategies. If you are not married and have never been married, you still have a lot of options, but not 567 options. All right, moving on. This page is basically saying, you know that as well as I do, life expectancy, we're living longer. So when we sign up for our Social Security, it's important that we sign up for the right thing, because when we go into Social Security, we're going to sit down with them and they're going to walk you through a few things. They're going to answer your questions. But let me tell you a couple of stories. I got lots of stories in this presentation. I've been doing this for 24 years. I was doing a workshop up in, I want to say Parkville in Missouri. Long skinny room, about 65 people in the room. Guy in the front left corner of the room was wanting to ask lots of questions. I finally had to get him to stop and wait till the very end because he was asking too many questions and we were slowing down the process here. And I let him be the first one to ask the question we got done. And when we got done, he basically stood up out of his chair and he turned around and he faced the whole audience. Now, usually people don't do that. They usually sit down and ask me their question. But he really didn't have a question. He had a story. And he wanted the whole room to hear the story. The story was, before he came to this workshop, months before that, he went to the Social Security office to go sign up for Social Security. And when he went in, he asked some questions. And Social Security said, the person sitting across the table said, here you go, sir, sign this form, sign this. It'll start in 90 days. It'll be deposited in your bank account in about 3 months. And he saw that and he thought to himself, well, wait a second, that's not right. I thought I was going to get more money. If you guys went and looked at your Social Security statement, what you're going to collect is not completely accurate, because what they show on your statement doesn't reflect taxes and doesn't reflect Medicare premiums. And I'm going to talk about Medicare here in just a minute. So he's looking at this dollar amount and he thought to himself, man, that doesn't seem right. So he doesn't want to sign it. So he leaves it alone, thanks the lady for a time, he leaves. He schedules another appointment, he comes back a week later. And in between those 2 appointments, you know what he did is he went home and he Googled. He got on the internet, he started looking up stuff on Social Security. Taking what he learned in that first meeting and he started looking up a few more things, got himself more informed. Went into the second appointment, same office, 1 week later, got a different clerk. Asked a lot of the same questions, asked more questions. Here you go, sir, sign this, it'll start in 90 days. He looked at that, well, I'll be, what do you think? It was a bigger amount. First amount was a little bit smaller. Second appointment he got was a little bit bigger. Which one do you think he signed for? You'd think he'd sign for the bigger one, but he didn't. And he told me that. I didn't sign for the second. So I said, why not? And this is him telling the whole story to the audience. And I said, why didn't you sign the second one if it's bigger? I thought his answer was the best part of the story. He says, you know what? I was afraid that what if the first answer was correct and I was being told wrong information with the second appointment with the second lady? What if the first one was correct? What if down the road I'm collecting that second amount, that bigger amount, and somewhere down the road Social Security audits this and catches up and realizes that they've been accidentally overpaying me, and I've become used to that income, and now all of a sudden Social Security is going to garnish my wages, or they're going to reduce my paycheck from the lifestyle I've been used to, and I'm going to get less amount. So he didn't sign the second time through. He left, he went home, he did more Googling, looked up more information, came back to the same office, scheduled a third appointment, got a third different person, and talked and talked and talked. Got the questions answered, more questions and more questions, got them all answered. And, here you go, sir, sign this, it'll start in 90 days. And he looked at that, and what do you think that was? You think it was the first amount or was similar to the second amount? It was neither, it was bigger. So what he did is he signed and ran the heck out of there, he said. So I said, how do you know if that was not right? He says, I've done this now for weeks. I've spent so much time and research on this. I just want to sign the big one because I'm tired of dealing with this. I just signed for the biggest one and left. So he's at my workshop, and he's already retired. He's already on Social Security because his wife was getting close to being retired, and she's about ready to go into Social Security, and he doesn't want to go through the same Social Security process with her that he did for himself. So he's trying to mitigate this and learn as much as he can. So after the workshop, he schedules an appointment with us. We have a conversation. We get the information from that we need. He tells us his story. We did a Social Security analysis for them. We sent it to him. When she goes in and schedules, boom, this is what I'm going to collect, and this is all she had to take. She took this into Social Security and said, this is what I'm signing up for. It was quick and easy. He said, oh my gosh, that was so stress-free. But when we had that appointment with him, and we're doing the Social Security analysis for her, we're also taking into account his Social Security because they're married, and I had to let him know a little bit of bad news. You didn't sign up for the right amount. There was something else that he should have signed up for. And I think it was only $12, if I remember right, $12 more a month. But I explained to him, this was the option you should have selected. So actually, when she went into Social Security to sign up for herself, she knew what she was going to do now because of this. He went back in, and he had his amended to get the correct amount. So the thing with Social Security is the Social Security people are there to help us. Let me turn this thing off. They're there to help us, but they can only answer the questions that we ask. So the importance of this is that we're living longer all the time. And so what you sign up for Social Security is important because you need this to last your whole lifetime. Oh, I think it's doing that. Every time I touch it, it's jittery there. All right. So retirement is kind of like a three-legged stool. Social Security benefits, pension benefits, and then your personal savings. Now, some of you on this webinar are like me. You don't have a job or ever had a job that's going to pay you a pension. So your entire retirement income is going to be Social Security and then your investments, your personal savings. So that means it's more work on our investments for us. But for some people, pension's a part of the equation. Now, I'm not a Medicare expert, so please don't ask me lots of questions on Medicare. But I have a couple things on Medicare that I want to talk about because it's related to Social Security. And that whole page with all those numbers, this is what I really want you to look at right there. The average increase on our Social Security paycheck goes up at about 1.6% a year. Now, we can go year after year after year and not have any pay raise. We're getting the same amount this year as we got last year from Social Security. Then all of a sudden, boom, they'll come out with a bigger pay raise. But the long-term average of pay increases from Social Security is about 1.6%. This is the average increase for Medicare. Your Medicare is yours and mine's health insurance and retirement time, but you have to pay for it. It's a really good plan, but we got to pay for it. Okay? And that cost is dependent on one thing. The cost of Medicare premiums is based on one thing. What is your income level? It has nothing to do with male or female. It has nothing to do with your pre-existing medical conditions, your pills that you're taking, none of that. It has everything to do with what is your income. And the lower your income, the lower your monthly premium, the higher your income. If you are blessed to have a higher income in retirement, then you will be blessed to pay a higher Social Security or higher Medicare premium. So your Medicare premiums go up on an average of 6.39%, but my pay raise from Social Security goes up on an average about 1.6. You see that to be a problem? My cost of insurance is going up faster than my cost of insurance is going up. So it's a recipe for a problem. And then take a look on this page here. You can have your Medicare premiums be as little as $144 a month, or it could be as high as $491 a month, depending on your income level. So that's why it's important to maximize this. This is right off their website. The Social Security Administration, Social Security Basic Facts, April 2014, www.ssa.gov. Let me just read you the part in yellow highlight. The The Social Security office is well staffed with very trained and knowledgeable employees. The staff answers questions accurately. However, they are instructed not to give advice. Their job is not to advise, but to answer questions. Right here, their job is not to advise. Their job is not to advise. In two back-to-back sentences, they're saying they're not to advise. Here's why. You need to go in and you need to know what questions to ask. You got to be smart enough to know what questions to ask because you won't get information. They're not going to volunteer information because there's so many variables when it comes to Social Security. Again, there's 567 options. And the obvious option is not always the correct option when you consider the rest of your world. Your age, your retirement income amount, your pension, your other investments, all of these other variables are going to matter. So Social Security is going to make darn sure that nobody can sue them. So they're going to default to, if you didn't get the right amount, like that guy I told the story in Parkville, and I got lots of stories like that guy, where you go in and you get different amounts each time you go, it's because he didn't know what questions to ask, and they weren't going to volunteer the information. Now, I had a client one time before she passed, was a 35-year Social Security clerk that worked in the Social Security office that met with people like you and I and had these appointments and answered their questions and helped them fill out paperwork so they can sign up for Social Security. And I remember her telling me stories where she just wanted to kind of like lean across the table and whisper in their ear, "You're not asking me the right question. You should be asking me this." But she couldn't because she was afraid she was going to lose her job, lose her paycheck, lose her health insurance, lose her retirement plan. Because Social Security is telling her, you need to answer their questions, but don't volunteer information. Only answer what is asked. Now, Social Security is not trying to screw us. Trust me, they're not. They're not trying to pay us less. That's not what I'm saying. But because there's so many variables with your overall retirement world and what, let's say, option or strategies you should incorporate with Social Security that coordinates with everything else you have, they just don't have the time to do that. And they're not licensed professional financial advisors to look at all of these things and then to look at Social Security to know what thing you should take with Social Security that coordinates with the rest of all your other stuff. And that's where I come in handy. And that's, you probably are not going to find anybody in Kansas City as a financial advisor who knows more about Social Security than me. And I'm not trying to say that to brag. It's just I built my 24-year career around taxes and Social Security. This is my niche. And we do all the same things other advisors do, but this is our niche that we do that they don't do. And let's talk about these topics. All right, 28% of Americans are collecting full benefits. So we're going to call full benefits age 66 or later. That means 72% of Americans are taking a reduced benefit, meaning they started at 65, 64, 63, 62. They started at a younger age getting a reduced amount. Look at what I have highlighted in the bottom in yellow. Only 4% of retirees claim Social Security benefits that is optimal, meaning $3.4 trillion are being left on the table because people are not selecting the optimal option on Social Security strategies. That's huge. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't start Social Security at 62 or 64 or 66 or 70. We don't know that until we get to know you a little bit. But 3.4 trillion being left on the table because people aren't claiming optimal amounts. And that's what we're here to try to show you how to do. Now, by the end of this presentation, are you going to walk right into Social Security and know what to do? No, you won't. But you're going to know a lot more information by the end of this presentation. And what you really want to do is at the end of this presentation, you want to schedule an appointment to talk with us so we can ask you a few questions, we can answer a few of your questions, and more importantly, we can get you that Social Security analysis and the tax analysis. We can give you these things. Again, there's nothing we're charging for. We're not selling anything. There's no product being pitched. But we'll give you these two things so you can be armed to go back to your financial advisor, or you can be armed to go into the Social Security office and get things implemented. Now, what you're seeing on the screen here, this is what a copy of your Social Security statement looks like, and it comes once to you in the mail annually. All right. Now, Social Security is looking at your best 35 years. That's key. They're not looking at your last 35 years because some people kind of cruise control into retirement, start to work part-time. No, this is your best 35 years. And typically what people look at on their Social Security report is they go look at this part right here. Hey, when I'm 62, I'm going to get $1,159 a month. If I wait until 70, I'm going to get $2,094. At 66, I'm going to get $1,680 a month. That's what you're looking at. Okay, what can I expect to get from Social Security? That's important to look at. But what I want you to do is I want you to look at this part right here. And I want you to go back and look at the last year. Okay, go back and look at those last 3 years in your statement because you have 3 years to fix a mistake. On this example down here, this is just using an example. It says 2012. Let's just say this is my statement. It says my income in 2012 was $45,718. But you know what? I didn't make $45,000 that year. I made $54,000. So somewhere between my employer or the HR department of my employer and Social Security, somebody had a typo somewhere. and mistyped in my income. I made $54,000. I paid tax on $54,000. I contributed to Social Security based on $54,000. But Social Security Administration only has it reported that I contributed based on $45,000 in income. You see that to be a problem? But you have 3 years to find a mistake and correct it. So this is 2012. It's 2020 now. I can't fix this mistake because it's too old. All right. So when you get your statement, I want you to look at that last 3 years and just double check. Did my employer and Social Security report the right amount? Okay. You'll recognize it. It's going to be an obvious number if it's wrong. But what you're looking at typically is you're going and you're looking at this part right here. Okay. You're looking at that dollar amount. This is what I need from you to do the Social Security analysis. So let me be clear. To do a Social Security analysis, I do not need your Social Security number. That's too confidential. That's too private. What I need is these $3 amounts off of your Social Security statement. Nowhere on your statement does it have your Social Security number. I think it has like the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. That's all that it has. So it doesn't have your Social Security number. I need to know your name, your date of birth, your spouse's name, your spouse's date of birth, or ex-spouse, or deceased spouse. And then I need to know those 3 numbers for you and your spouse. That's what we need to know to be able to run the Social Security analysis. So that's why I want to show you. That's why it's important for us to get that information so we can have this. If you don't have your Social Security statement at home, okay, they are mailed out every year, but simple solution, you can go onto their website and get it. But I'm going to tell you the website for Social Security is not user-friendly at all. All right? When you schedule an appointment with us, Stacy will give you a call. We'll confirm it. We will email you some instructions if you need it on exactly step-by-step instructions as to how to go to their website, what to type in here, what to click on here, what to type in here, what to click on here, so that you can get your Social Security statement. And you get that for you get that for your spouse, and then you get that to us, and we'll be ready to go get that Social Security analysis for you. So we can give you that instructions when you schedule your appointment, and Stacy, before you talk to us, will coordinate that with you and get you that information so you can log online and do it correctly. If you try to log into Social Security's website and do it on your own, you have 2 chances to get it right. If you don't do it after 2 times of doing it right, you get booted off their system for 24 hours, and you can't even re-log in or even try to get it for 24 hours. If you just follow our instructions, you'll get it the first time and there won't be any mistakes. All right, so let's move on. Now this is a graph that if I can tell you to memorize, I want you to memorize the shape of it. I don't expect you to memorize all the numbers, but remember what it looks like. So at 66 here, this is what we're going to call FRA, our full retirement age. That's when we can have a job and our job no longer penalizes our Social Security. That's what that means. But if I start collecting Social Security at 65, it's 7% less. At 64, 13% less. At 63, it's 20% less. At 62, it's 25% less. I can start Social Security at 62. We all can. But it's just going to be 25% less than what it would be if I waited until 66. So you can start at a younger age. It's just going to get less. And the longer you wait, it grows and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So now by the time I'm 67, it's 8% higher. It's 8% higher. It's 8% higher. It's 8% higher. Those last 4 years between 67 and 70, it's going to go up at 4% or 8% a year, a total of 32% more than what it would be at 66. This is a system of looking like this. The longer we wait, the bigger it gets. So why is that? Well, because if I start drawing Social Security at 62, my life expectancy is a lot of years. And they're going to have to pay out the Social Security check to me for a lot of years. If I wait until age 70, I'm going to get a bigger check out of Social Security, but my life expectancy is less. So they don't have to pay me out as much. So if you can tell me exactly when you're going to die, then we know exactly what year you should start, of course, but you don't know that answer. But the idea there is Social Security is not trying to screw us. It's just all simply about life expectancy. Okay, so if you wait until 70, it's how you get the bigger check, but that doesn't mean that's what you should do. A lot of times you should start at an earlier age, incorporate the right Social Security strategies, go back into Social Security and switch it to another option later, all of which these strategies that you're doing with Social Security is coordinating with your overall retirement plan and what you're doing with your financial advisor. Let me see, I got a question popped up here. How much does it cost to schedule an appointment with us? Good question, Ruth, but we don't have, this is all nonprofit. We're running this through our nonprofit. We do not charge to have appointments with us. We do not charge to do the analysis work. This is our way of giving back to the community and helping everybody with this information. So again, no products being pitched, not selling anything, just we're here to help out. I have the 3rd largest money management firm in Kansas City. We're very successful. This is just my way of kind of doing things where I get to help others kind of in a no stress way for me, because I don't have to sell anything. It's just I'm helping folks. I'm answering questions on taxes and Social Security. So no cost for the appointment, no cost for the analysis. Good question to ask. Thank you for asking that. All right. So here we're talking about full retirement age. So full retirement age. Okay, here's what you need to know. All right, so if you are under full retirement age, means you are under 66. You are 65, 64, 63, 62, and you are collecting your Social Security, but you still have a job, you can be penalized. Okay, what that says is my limit is $18,240 a year. As long as my job is making me $18,240 or less, then my Social Security won't be penalized. But if my job is making me over $18,240 and I'm under full retirement age and I'm collecting Social Security, then for every $2 I earn over that $18,000 limit, I lose $1 of Social Security. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So let me give you an example. I'm 64 years old and I'm still working, but I'm collecting my Social Security, and my job is, let's call it $28,000 a year. I'm $10,000 over that limit, which means I will lose $5,000 off my Social Security. Since I'm $10,000 over the limit, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. I lose $5,000 for my Social Security. I'm going to make $5,000 less because of my job. Now, once the year I reach full retirement age, I'm 65, but my birthday's later in the year. I'm going to turn 66 later in the year. They give us a bigger buffer. Now it goes all the way up to $48,600. So now my job can make $48,600 this year without having my Social Security being reduced. And then if I do make over $48,600 this year, now it's a 3-to-1 ratio. So for every $3 I earn over the $48,000 limit, for every $3 I earn over that, then I lose $1 of Social Security. So they're basically saying, I'm 65, I'm working, collecting my Social Security, I just haven't quite collected it yet because it's later in the year. And earlier in the year, I still made money at my job. That's what that means. But once I reach full retirement age, once I am there, there is no limit, there is no penalty. So now I'm 66, 67, 68, 69, I'm 70, I'm still working, and I've started my Social Security at least age 66 or later. That means my job won't penalize my Social Security. I can make $10,000 a year, $100,000 a year, $1 million a year. My job will not penalize my Social Security. What is maximum income? Christina, that's going to vary on person to person on maximum income levels. Christina's asking what's the maximum amount a couple can receive. I'll have to run you the numbers. It's going to be based on your highest 35 years of earning, your husband's highest 35 years of earning, and we can run that number for you. So let's exit off Christina right now. Christina, that's kind of a personal question that we can answer directly for you with your own Social Security analysis. All right, let's get past that to move on here. All right, this is what I call my change my mind form. One of the misunderstandings people have on Social Security is once I go in and I sign up for my Social Security, it's in blood, it's in stone, I can't change it. That would be true on your pension if you have a pension. A state pension, a federal pension, a corporate pension, pensions are that way. But not Social Security. I've already mentioned that you can go in and sign up for one option and collect your Social Security, and then later in life, go back a few years later, go back in and have another appointment and sign new paperwork, and you can refile and change it to another option because it's going to be a bigger option later. You can do that. I've had people I've worked with that have gone to a Social Security webinar or a workshop like this. They come in and see me. They're already on Social Security. We still do the analysis for them, and we've identified that they're not taking the correct amount. So we send them back to Social Security just to get it corrected, and they collect a higher amount. And they didn't know that they could do that. So you got to change your mind for them. Okay, you just got to fill out the paperwork and you get your Social Security changed. Let me read this next question here. Have pensions from my first job, now working second job, still paying into Social Security. Will be 62 in October. Also have Charles, your question there, I don't see what the question is. It just tells me like you're giving me a statement on what you're trying to tell me about your pension. Charles, can you add to that what you're trying to ask me? And I'll be happy to answer it for you. All right, move on. Okay, so talk about spouse benefits. Now, when I say spouse benefits, there are two ways for you and I to collect Social Security. Off myself, we're going to call that individual benefits, and then off of somebody else, that's called spouse benefits. When you collect off of a spouse, that means my current, let's say in my case, my current wife, or if I was divorced, my ex-wife. If my wife had died, my deceased wife. That's what we call spouse benefits. So I'm going to talk about this and give you some numbers here. I'm going to talk about Jeremy and Samantha. So let's say in this case, Jeremy's entitled to $2,200 of Social Security benefits at age 66. His full retirement is 66, he'll get $2,200. Samantha, maybe she was a stay-at-home mom. Maybe she raised the kids. She had the tougher of the two jobs. So she's not entitled to Social Security. For you and I to collect off of Social Security, to collect our own Social Security, we had to have worked and contributed to Social Security for 40 quarters, which means 10 years. Okay? If you don't have 40 quarters contributing to Social Security, then you're not eligible for your own Social Security. In this case, this example, I'm saying Samantha, if she worked, it was under the table money, or maybe she never worked, she was always a stay-at-home mom and wife, who knows, but in this case, she's not entitled to her own Social Security. However, she is entitled to collect half of Jeremy because she is married to Jeremy, or she was married to Jeremy for 10 years. In this case, let's just say they're married. So Samantha is entitled to collect $1,100. Her collecting $1,100 is half of his $2,200, but it doesn't reduce his. It doesn't affect his. He'll get $2,200. She'll get $1,100. Together, they're bringing in $3,300 from Social Security. That's how that works. All right. Now that we're on the subject of Social Security benefits for a spouse, let's talk about that. Remember that scale I just showed you a minute ago about collecting your own benefits, and it starts at 62? Do you remember what it was reduced by at age 62? All the way at 62, it's reduced by 25%. And that's the part I want you to memorize. I can start at 62 and it's 25% reduced, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger all the way up until 70. Those last 4 years from 67 to 70, it grows 8%, 8%, 8%, 8%. I want you to memorize that because that's our own Social Security. This is about collecting spouse benefits. And if I want to start at age 62 and collect off of my spouse, I can do that, but it's going to be reduced. I'm going to lose 30% of it. If I start at 62 collecting my own benefits, it's reduced by 25%. If I collect off my spouse, it's reduced by 30%. So it's basically like I'm going to start young and it's reduced, and I'm going to collect off of somebody else. It's going to be reduced a little bit more. So the longer you wait, the more you get. Okay, but it's reduced by 30% to start with. Once we reach full retirement age, that's when I can collect the maximum amount. In this case, using Jeremy and Samantha, Jeremy's getting $2,200. Samantha can get the full $1,100 if she waits until 66. If she starts earlier than 66, she won't get the full $1,100. She'll get it less. In this case, if she started at 62, she would get 70% of that $1,100 is what she would collect on. All right, got some questions popping up here. Okay, so Shannon's asking the question, Social Security for spouse benefits, is it the last spouse? It's the last spouse that you were married to for 10 years. So if you're married to spouse number one and you were married over 10 years, you married spouse number two and you got divorced 5 years into it, let's say. The second spouse isn't the option. You go to the first spouse. It's the last spouse you were married to that you were married to for 10 years. So if you're currently married to spouse number two or spouse number three, that's the person you use because you're currently married. If you're widowed or divorced, it's always the last spouse, or in this case, the last spouse that was 10 years. Because sometimes we'll marry somebody, we've been married to the first spouse for a long time, we get married to somebody else, we're married to him for a short time. So now we've been divorced twice. You don't get access to the second one, you get access to the first one. If I'm still married to spouse number two, then I lose access to spouse number one because I'm currently married. It's always the spouse you're married to or the last one that you were married to for 10 years. So hopefully Shannon answered that question. Charles asking, should I collect at 62 or wait? Charles, I don't know. I don't know anything about you, Charles. I can't tell you if you should start at 62. We have an individual appointment with you. We'll get the Social Security analysis for you. That'll tell us exactly when you should start and what option you should select. And then it should tell us at another age, what age would it be for you to select and move to another option? We'll have all that in the Social Security analysis. So you're asking way too vanilla of a question, Charles, that I can't really answer for you specifically there. I need to know more information to be specific. But spouse benefits, I wanted to point out here that spouse benefits stop growing at 66. So here's a good story. Wonderful client of ours, retired judge in the state of Kansas. I'm going to give you some parameters here. He's 68, wife is 71. She's 3 years older than him. When he retired 3 years ago at the age of 65, he's collecting his Kansas state pension, and she's collecting her Social Security. And that's what they've been living on. Now, fast forward 3 years in retirement, he's 68. Let me see, this is popping on my screen. He's 68, she's 71. He's coming to my Social Security workshop wanting to know, should I start to collect my Social Security now, or should I wait till next year at 69, or should I wait till next year at 70? So we did the Social Security analysis, and we said, oh, first off, you don't want to be collecting your Social Security now. You should be collecting off of your wife. Well, wait a second. My Social Security is way up here. If I collect off my wife, it's way down here. Yes, I know. We intentionally want you to go collect off your wife and get this little amount right now. Because if you wait one more year, for you, it grows 8%. You wait 2 more years, it grows 8% more. That's 16% more. Now you're at 70. That's the max amount. You go back in at 70 in 2 years. Stop taking this, refile, and start taking this, and live out the rest of your life taking this much higher amount. And in your lifetime, you've collected way more money out of Social Security that way. Oh, and by the way, that's not just the bad news. The bad news is you should have started collecting Social Security 3 years ago when you retired. Not off of you, but off of her. Because now that you're 68, what you collect off of your wife is the same amount here at 68 that you could have collected last year at 67. It's the same amount you could have collected 2 years ago at 66. You basically could have been collecting Social Security for the last 2 years and you didn't. And no, they're not retroactively pay you back for the last 2 years that you could have collected but you should have. Smart guy, he's a judge, he's got a law degree, he's frustrated. Why didn't they tell me this? Because you didn't ask the right questions. And again, you have to know what questions to ask. And all of us, we're not smart enough to know what questions to ask on something as complicated as Social Security. I don't know if you know this, but the Social Security handbook is bigger than our federal tax code handbook. That's how complicated it is. 567 strategies. And I spent a 24-year career trying to get this stuff memorized. And this analysis will make your life easier. It'll answer your questions. It'll tell you when to start. It'll tell you how much to expect. It'll tell you if you should switch to another option, what option you should switch to, at what age. It'll tell you what your spouse should do. It'll do all that. Again, no cost. All right, so let's move on here. Let's go past that here. All right, so now let me start giving you some real math problems. All right, so real math, because what we've been talking about is knowledge-based, and I want to put some knowledge now with some numbers to kind of help it make more sense to you. So some of you kind of like concept and theory, but some of you want to start seeing numbers behind it, so that's why we're going to do some numbers. So let's say Jeremy, in this case, he's going to start collecting Social Security at the age of 62. Samantha, now we're going to change it. She did have a job. She did contribute to Social Security. And her Social Security at 66 is $700. Jeremy's at 66 is $2,200. We're going to have Samantha die at the age of 82. We're going to have Jeremy die at the age of 85. We don't know. This is what they're telling us to do. But we're going to have Jeremy start collecting Social Security at 62, and Samantha will start collecting at Social Security. But if you see, Jeremy he's getting $1,650. And how did I get $1,650? Because his Social Security at full retirement age is $2,200. And if he starts at 62, it's 25% reduced. So you take 25% off the $2,200, he's going to be left with living with $1,650. Now Samantha, she's going to get $800. And how do we come up with $800? Well, she's entitled to half of his full retirement amount. His full retirement is $2,200. She's entitled to half that, which is $1,100. But because she's going to start at 62, it's reduced by 30%. So you take 30% off of the $1,100. That's where we come up with $800. Okay, that's how we came up with that numbers. And then we live out life. Jeremy dies at 75, Samantha dies at 82. They're going to live out their life, and they're going to collect $550,000 out of Social Security in a lifetime. Now, this slide and the next couple of slides are good slides. They're generic. These are national slides. We got it from the largest nonprofit agency in the United States for Social Security, and they're called Social Security 567. Hence, there's 567 strategies. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because in today's world, when I'm working with folks in Kansas City, I find that one person or both people have more Social Security benefits coming in than $1,650 and $800. And if you have one number or both those numbers bigger than $1,650 and $800, like I'm showing here, then you're going to collect a lot more than $550,000. Your numbers will just be exponentially bigger. So what I'm trying to show is if we started at 62 and then they both start at 62 and Jeremy dies at 75 and Samantha dies at 82, they're going to collect $550,000. Now let's try changing it up. Now we're going to start Social Security at 66, and Jeremy is now going to get the full $2,200 because he's waited until 66. Samantha will now collect the full $1,100. Now because of that, they went from $550,000 to $580,000. Wouldn't you agree we just made a step in the right direction? By waiting those couple more years, and they both start at 66, in their lifetime, they're going to collect not only a bigger check, but they'll collect more money out of Social Security. Remember, the key here isn't just about getting the biggest check. I can show you how to get the biggest check. Wait until 70. That's the answer. Wait till 70. But the goal isn't always to the goal isn't always to get the biggest check. The goal is to get the most amount of money out of Social Security in my lifetime. And that means sometimes I have to start with a smaller check and then change it to a bigger check later. And overall, I collect a lot more money that way. In this case, we went from 550 to 580. Okay. Charles is asking, where is our office located? We're located in Overland Park. But, like I said, a lot of our appointments are web.com, zoom.com, type of meetings is what I'm trying to say, phone-based. Most of the people on this workshop are out of Lee Summit. We rotate around Kansas City. So I'm 5 minutes away from State Line. We typically go out to the Gamber Center in Lee Summit is where we typically go. And from our office to the Gamber Center, it's about a 20-minute drive. So we're located in Overland Park, Charles. Cindy's asking, I do not get ex-spouse's full amount if I stayed at home and have no Social Security amount. All right, so Cindy, if I'm reading this correctly, if you were married to him before you got divorced and you were married to him for 10 years, you are entitled to his benefits. He has to be drawing his benefit. I don't know your age, so there's some rules here, but he probably has to be on his Social Security before you can collect drawing off of him. Just because you, Cindy, didn't have enough Social Security contribution yourself and you don't get to collect off yourself, you're still entitled to collect off of him as long as you were married to him for 10 years. Okay, so, but again, we'll talk about that. We'll get some information from you, and I'll be precise, and I'll tell you exactly what you're entitled to, and I'll show you how that works. When we have our appointments, we can do that for you. So let's take this step with Jeremy and Samantha. Let's go on to the next one here. All right, so now Jeremy and Samantha. Now we're going to have Jeremy start collecting at age 70. So his 2,200 benefit now jumps up to 2,904. Where'd that come from? Well, 2,200 plus 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8% for those 4 years got to 2,904. But Samantha, she starts at 70, collecting off of him. That's 1,100. Now, why is hers at 1,100? She was going to get 1,100 over here at 66 because spouse options stopped growing at 66. So whether she collects it at 66 or collects it at 70, she's still going to get just 1,100. Okay. So if we started at age 62, they'll collectively collect 550,000. They both start at full retirement age, it's 580,000. They start at 70, it's 532,000. You can see how that's not a good option. Now they're ultimately collecting less money in their lifetime by waiting until later. That's not a smart move. Jeremy is collecting the biggest check. He waits until 70. His check has grown all the way to 2,904. But in this case, we had him dying at 75. Even though it's the biggest check, he only got 5 years worth. All right, so that's why it's important to kind of map this out. Would you go ahead and archive Cindy's question on ex-spouse, because I already answered that to some degree and told that we have to get more information from her. Okay, so let's try looking at a hybrid approach or a strategy approach where we're going to incorporate this is my term, it's not a technical term, it's just my term, a switcheroo. We're going to start with one option, we're going to switch it to something else. So Jeremy's going to wait until age 66 to start collecting his Social Security, which is 2,200. But Samantha, she can go ahead and start collecting it at 62. She can do that herself because she has her own Social Security. Her Social Security is 600 at 66. So if she starts collecting her own benefits at 62, it's reduced by 25%. You take 25% off of $600, she'll get $450 a month. She'll get $450 every month. And then at 66, when Jeremy goes in and he starts to file for himself, she can file off of him at age 66. And now she's going to switch it from getting $450 a month to now $1,100. So she started collecting hers, which had no impact on his. And then when he starts, she can start. January 2nd, 1954. For those of you who want to write notes down, January 2nd, 1954 is an important date. There was a law change in Social Security 3 years ago that affects people before and after January 2nd, 1954. If you were born before January 2nd, 54, you can collect off your spouse or ex-spouse without them having been on Social Security. You can just collect off of them because you're of age. But the new rule says if you're born after January 2nd, 54, you can still collect off your spouse. It's just they have to be collecting first. So in this case, Samantha can't collect off of Jeremy until Jeremy is collecting off of himself. Okay, so Samantha can collect off of Samantha. She can collect off of herself because she's just collecting off herself. She doesn't have access to Jeremy's benefits until Jeremy starts. Okay, so sometimes we're going to see in Samantha's case, we're going to sometimes see her collect spouse benefits first and then switch to individual benefits and live out the rest of her life collecting individual benefits because math-wise that works out better for them. In this case, it's the exact opposite. She's going to collect off her own benefits for a while and then switch to spouse benefits and live out the rest of her life collecting off of spouse benefits. Here's a common question we get. What if Jeremy dies? Okay, so using this example here, Jeremy's getting 2,200, Samantha's getting 1,100. That's 3,300 coming in. It doesn't matter who dies first. The surviving spouse gets the bigger of the two checks. So if Jeremy dies, then Samantha's check will drop from $1,100 and she'll pick up Jeremy's 2,200. So again, it doesn't matter who dies first. The surviving spouse doesn't get both checks. They don't get theirs plus half of their deceased spouse. They just get the bigger of the two checks. In this case, it's 2,200. She'll collect 2,200. Okay? So now I've just kind of shown you some math problems on how to look at Social Security. All right. Now, let's change one variable. All right? So when we go back here, we'll hit the button once here. Here we go. So remember we went from starting at 62, we get 550,000. At age 66, it's 580. If we go to age 70, it's 532, and we agreed that's not the best option. But if we do a strategy approach where we start with one and do a switcheroo, 584,000. That right there is the best option. That's going to get Jeremy and Samantha the most amount of money in their lifetime out of Social Security. But now let's change one variable. Because over here we have Samantha going to die at 82, and Jeremy, we're going to have him die at 75. Let's just change that one variable. We're going to have Jeremy die at 85, Samantha die at 92, just pushed out 10 years. Now look what it went to. It went to $962,000. Before, it was $584,000. Now it's $962,000. That's almost $400,000 more. The longer we live, the bigger the impact, of course. The longer we live, it's really, really super important to know what option to sign up for. So I'll give you another example. I had a guy come see me. I was in Lee Summit doing a workshop. And, the guy's a nice guy, but he's retired. and I think he was, let me think about this, he was 64, and he was living off his rental income. So he retired, he has a little bit of a pension coming in, and he had rental properties he was collecting, and that was his income in retirement. He was comfortable. So he comes in and does the Social Security analysis with me, and he's basically telling me he doesn't want to collect Social Security until 70 because he doesn't need the money. Might as well wait till 70 because it gets bigger. Okay, well, that makes sense. But as we're starting to talk, I noticed a little of this. Okay, so I noticed a little handshake. So I had to ask a couple questions and got a little personal here. Found out he has Parkinson's. The thing was, is he has Parkinson's since he was a teenager. He's been diagnosed for that many years with Parkinson's. So as we talk more and talk more and talk more, he basically says that he has way, way outlived his life expectancy for somebody who's been diagnosed with Parkinson's at like 18 or 19 years old. Way outlived it. But he said most of his life has been very manageable, but the last 3 years, his life has changed drastically. And, you know, his brain to mouth, he's thinking it, but his mouth isn't saying it. His shakes, the pills that he's taking, his quality of life over the last 3 years is drastically less now than what it used to be. And so I had to ask the tough question is, okay, with your health changing so much the way it has in the last 3 years, what now is your life expectancy? And he says, well, the doctor's only going to give me 3 more years. So I said, wait a second. You're 64. You want to wait until 70 to collect Social Security, but the doctor's only going to have you live 3 more years? I said, man, you need to get your butt out of my office and go collect Social Security right now. And he's like, Mark, I don't need it. You're missing the point. I don't need it. I said, no, you're missing the point. Social Security has no beneficiaries. You don't collect this, you die, it's gone. Your kids don't get this money. Your family doesn't get this money. Now, he's divorced. His ex-wife can claim off of him for herself to claim it, but there's nobody that's going to get this. You've spent your whole life contributing to Social Security and working and contributing to Social Security, and you're never going to collect on it. So I said, if you don't want the money, then at least go collect it and give that to your kids and gift it to your kids while you're alive. If you don't need the money, go collect it and put it in your investments or your savings and build it up and then give that to your kids when you're gone. At least collect what you can collect while you're still alive. But he's like, Mark, I've already outlived what they've said so far. And they said 3 years, I plan to live past 70. I said, great, but you're not going to live long enough to have collected enough out of Social Security to wait till a later age. You need to start now and collect it. Never thought about that. It just never crossed his mind to think that way. His mind was dead set on this, and he wanted me to confirm it, and I just blew his mind with thinking outside the box. He goes, he collects his Social Security. I get a nice thank you card saying, I just never thought to think that way. My mind is made up, and it made sense to me, but once you told me about some of these things, that made more sense. I'm very happy. I don't need the money. I'm collecting it, and I'm just putting it aside in savings, and I'm going to give that to my kids when I'm gone. Because when I die, all of my Social Security is gone at that point. All right, so we've just spent all this time talking about Social Security. Here's the best part. We're going to talk about the taxes. This is by far the best part of the presentation. So if you thought this part was cool, the next part is even cooler. All right, so let me switch gears here. Remember, there's 2 tax systems here in our country, one for the informed, one for the uninformed. So I have Emily here with the technology company that's with us on this webinar here, and she's silent right now, but let's say I'm going to hang out with Emily after we're done with this webinar. And Emily and I are going to play some cards. And I've never played this card game before in my life, and she's going to teach me how to play. So she's going to teach me this. It's her game. Who's likely to win? It's Emily, because Emily knows the rules, right? So she should beat me. But what if Emily and I play this card game now 20, 30 times? We played it for an hour or 2, something like that. Now who's likely to win? She knows the rules. I know the rules, maybe more balanced, more 50-50. I could win, she could win. I agree with that. But I still say she has the upper hand. She still has the advantage. She knows the rules. I know the rules. But because she's been playing it a whole lot longer, she's figured out what? Strategies. She's figured out strategies to stay inside the rules, not to cheat, but to know how to beat me. That's what this is. What I'm about ready to teach you on taxes is so cool. It's Tax Law 101. I'm going to teach you what everybody in America can do, but you're just not doing it because no one's taught you this stuff. And when you're done with this, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I wished I would have met you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, is what you're going to be thinking, because that's how cool this is. I don't know anything about you guys financially on this webinar. Some of you asked some questions that I clearly can't answer without more information, but I do know this. You're entitled to what I'm showing you here. So let's go to this. All right, so here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Get your pen and paper. This is super, super important. You need to get pen and paper and write this down. If you don't, we're going to get done with this, and you won't remember this. You need to write this down. This is a really cool thing. So write 3 circles or draw 3 buckets, whatever. Just get 3 things on your page. And in the left circle, the left bucket, put tax deferred. The middle bucket, put that taxable. And in the right bucket, put tax free. Write that in there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you examples that come into those buckets. What I want you to do is I want you to manually write in under your 3 buckets what you have. So the first one I have up here is 401k. If you don't have a 401k, leave it alone. But if you still have a job, you got a 401k, then write the words 401k under that bucket or that circle, whatever you have there. IRAs, if you have IRAs, write in IRAs. Annuities, SEPs, 403b, pensions. Some of you guys have pensions. Social Security. We all have Social Security. You're on this webinar for Social Security, so write in Social Security. Whatever I just listed here that you have, write that down for me, please. Write that down under that left bucket. I'm going to give you a second. All right, the middle bucket, taxable bucket. There we go. Bank accounts, money markets, CDs, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Write down what you have. You probably have bank accounts. We all have checkings and savings. But if you got, in this bucket here where you see it says stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, folks, what I'm referring to is stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. That is not in IRAs, not Roth IRAs, not 401ks, just regular stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. If you have that kind of money, it comes under this bucket. That means it's taxable every year. Okay, write that down. Write whatever you have in that bucket, write those things down. Okay, in the last bucket, the tax-free bucket. Why does it do that? Okay, the tax-free bucket. All right, tax-free bucket, Roth 401k, Roth IRAs, municipal bonds, and life insurance. Write down whatever you have. If you've got a Roth 401k, write it in there. If you have Roth IRAs, write that in here. Life insurance, here's what I'm saying on life insurance. If you have life insurance that has a cash value buildup, like a whole life, a universal policy, something that's got cash value buildup, write life insurance in there. If you don't have that kind of life insurance and the life insurance you have is term insurance, then don't write that down. It doesn't apply. Now, in the left and middle bucket, there's lots of other examples, but these are like your most common ones. So I'm just using the most common ones to explain things. In the right bucket, guys, this is all we got, these 4 options. There is no other option. Okay? Now, what I want to do is I'm going to teach you these 3 buckets, and I'm going to teach you examples of these 3 buckets. I'm going to get you pros and cons. From that, you're going to understand the strategies. Okay, the left bucket's called tax deferred for a reason. It means as it grows, I don't pay tax. So let's walk through, let's say, advantages and disadvantages. Let's do the advantages first. Walk with me on this. This should make sense. In the left bucket, when I put money like into my 401k at work, I get a tax deduction. So if I have a job, I make $50,000 a year. I put $5,000 into my 401k. I'm being taxed on $45,000 of income, not $50,000. So I get a tax deduction. That's an advantage. Number 2, I get free employer money in this left bucket. Employers match on the 401k. Employers are contributing to our Social Security. Employers are contributing to our pensions. I get free money from our employers. That's an advantage. Number 3, this bucket has been growing and growing and growing, and it's never been what? It's never been taxed. All of these years, this money's been growing and growing and growing, and it's never been taxed. That's your advantages. Makes sense, right? What's the disadvantage of this bucket? The disadvantage of this bucket is you got 59.5 rules, you got 72 rules, and then in retirement time, you got to pay taxes. So the 59.5 rules. We've all been under the age of 59.5 before. We know that. Okay? If you take a withdrawal from the left bucket, you are going to pay taxes, but if you're under 59.5, there's an extra penalty. The penalty is 10%. So you're going to write that down under that bucket. You can put 59.5 and then put next to it dash 10%. If you're under 59.5, you will pay taxes and a 10% penalty. Okay? That's not the big problem. That's a problem, but that's not the big problem. The big problem is that 72 rules. That 72 rules, you can write this down. RMD. That stands for Required Minimum Distribution. Whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not, when we turn 72, the IRS is going to look at us and give us a formula and tell us, based on our age and based on how much money we have saved in those retirement accounts like IRAs and 401ks and such, based on how much money we got saved there, we are required to take a minimum distribution. We are required to take a withdrawal every year because by the time we're 72, this money's not been touched. This is the IRS's way of saying, you know what? You've kept money in that left bucket for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and it's never, ever been taxed. So we're going to force you to start taking withdrawals. We're going to force you to start paying taxes before you die. And if you don't follow those rules, it is a 50% penalty. Now I'm going to tell you those rules is roughly about, let's just call it 4%. It's slightly less than that, but I'm just going to say 4%. You got $1 million saved in that left bucket by the time you're 72. It's grown to $1 million by the time you're 72. Your required minimum distribution is going to be $40,000 that year. That is on top of your job, your part-time job, your spouse's job. That's on top of your pension, your Social Security, your other investment income. It's on top of all of that stuff. You have to withdraw that $40,000 and pay tax on it. The IRS doesn't care what you do with the money afterwards. You can go spend it or resave it. They just want you to take the $40,000 out and pay tax on the $40,000. If you don't take out that 40 and pay tax on that 40, you just got hit with a 20%, a $20,000 penalty, a 50% penalty. 50%. You've got to take out that $40,000. Now, what happens if I take out $30,000? I'm required to do 40, but I took out 30. I'm going to pay tax on the 30, but the 10,000 that I didn't take out, but I was supposed to, I just lost $5,000 in penalty. It is a 50% penalty on every dollar that you were supposed to withdraw, but you didn't. The most important thing in my presentation, this is the most important part because we all plan to live past 72. We all plan for our spouse to live past 72. These rules are going to come at you whether you want it or not. This is the IRS's way of saying, I want to collect some tax dollars on money that has never been taxed. Okay, so that's why it's important that you know this. Okay, now my job is to show you how to take money from the left bucket and move it to the right bucket. Okay, I'm going to teach you how to take money out of here, move it over here, and that's called Roth conversion. Oh, kind of like I lost my screen there. Roth conversion. All right, but I'll get to that in just a minute. So the left bucket's got pros and cons. Tax deduction, free money from my employer, tax deferred growth. That's my advantages. My disadvantages, I have 59.5 rules, I have 72 rules, and then I have to pay taxes when I take withdrawals. That's my disadvantages. The middle bucket, bank accounts, money markets, CDs, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, they have pros and cons. The positive is, look, no 59.5 rule, no 72 rule. That's a positive. The disadvantages bucket, I get taxed every year. Here's my disadvantage. When my money makes money, if my money in these accounts grow, I earn interest or dividends and capital gains, it grows, I get a 1099 every year and I got to pay tax on that. So the advantage of this bucket is I don't have rules, but the disadvantage is I get taxed every year. Okay? And then the right bucket, Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, municipal bonds, and life insurance policies. You see how I have that 59.5 rule right there? That 59.5 rule is the same as this 59.5 rule, and it applies to those two things right there. But you notice, no 70.5 rule. No 70.5 rule in that middle bucket, no 70.5 rule in that right bucket. So let me walk you through the advantages and disadvantages of the right bucket. Here's the disadvantages of the right bucket. Number one is I have a 59.5 rule. Number two is I have income limits. If I want to do a Roth IRA contribution, not a Roth conversion, a Roth IRA contribution, there can be some income limits. Well, we usually talk about doing conversion strategies, and conversions don't have income limits. So you have these kind of rules. The biggest negative of the right bucket, biggest negative, I don't know the rules. I don't know that I'm eligible. No one's ever told me this. Lack of knowledge is your downside. Okay. What's the positive of this bucket? How about tax-free growth, tax-free withdrawals, tax-free to my beneficiaries when they inherit it, and no 72 rules. No 72 rules. Tax-free growth, tax-free withdrawals, tax-free to my beneficiaries, no 72 rules. That's the advantages. And now take a look at those three buckets. Do me a favor. If you wrote out the three buckets like I've asked you to, and you kind of wrote under the buckets where you have your money, I want you to do that under all three buckets. You see in the top of the bucket, there's a percent sign. I want you to do this for yourself. This is like a little worksheet for yourself. Here's my question when I ask you. If you're retired, you should have a general idea of this. If you're not retired, fast forward to retirement and kind of think about what life would look like when you retire. My question is, what percentage of your retirement income is going to come to you from the left bucket? What percentage is going to come from the middle bucket? What percentage is going to come from the right bucket? If you don't have anything written under one of those buckets, like you don't have anything in the tax-free bucket, you don't have Roth IRAs or Roth 401ks, then make that bucket zero. All three of these buckets need a total of 100%. All right, so do that. Take a second. What percentage of your income in retirement time is going to be paid to you from the left bucket? What percentage of your retirement income is going to be paid to you from the middle bucket? What percent is going to be paid to you from the right bucket? I'm not asking you how much money you have in those buckets, how much money you have saved, because pension is not an asset. Social Security is not an asset. Those are income sources. So I'm asking you how much of your retirement income is going to come out of the left bucket, and how much of your retirement income is going to be from the middle, and how much of your retirement income is going to be from the right bucket. When you do that, and you look at this, I got no doubt you're lopsided. Okay, if I asked you, you would say, these two are my two biggest buckets. Am I right? You get a lot of head nodding? That's my two biggest buckets. What's your single biggest bucket? This guy right here. You would say that's probably your single biggest bucket. You're going to say that left bucket's your biggest bucket. And why is that? Because your age. The people who are on this webinar are typically that pre-retirees, retirees, that baby boomer generation. the bulk of your life you've had access to retirement plans at work, Social Security and pensions. You've got these things. You've got 401ks. Maybe you changed jobs and rolled over 401k and you have an IRA. You got, maybe some of you have pensions. You all have Social Security. And you got some of you have bank accounts, things like this. When you look at that and say, where's my income going to come from in retirement time? Social Security, pension, investments. You're going to see that biggest number is going to be in the left bucket. And what's the problem with that left bucket? That problem with that left bucket is it's all taxable in retirement time. It causes my taxable income to go up. I have the 72 rules that kick in and force me to take withdrawals whether I want. That causes my taxable income to go up. If my taxable income goes up, then my Social Security tax bracket goes up. And what else goes up with my taxable income is my Medicare premiums, because Medicare premiums are strictly based on your income level. And that's going to go up too. That RMD rule, that 72 rule, is the booger. If you understand that rule, you know how to plan ahead and don't wait until 72. You come out way ahead. We do this analysis all the time for everybody through our nonprofit workshops. We do the Social Security analysis, we'll do the Social Security analysis, we'll do the tax analysis. We're not selling, there's no cost, we're no product pitching. We're not telling you, hey, that mutual fund that you have is bad or good. We don't do that. This is looking at what your financial situation is and how can we help you with taxes, how can we help you with Social Security. I'm assuming you have good investments, you have a good financial advisor, or you're doing it yourself. That's fine. We're going to fill in the gaps and talk to you about the things that you're not doing for yourself or the things that your financial advisor is not doing by getting you the tax analysis and the Social Security analysis. And the average person, this is one of the things I love about going around Kansas City through my nonprofit, the average person that we work with after our workshops saves over $250,000 of taxes in their lifetime. And that doesn't include the taxes in the spouse's lifetime after the first death, and that doesn't include the tax savings to the kids and that ultimately inherit your assets. Because when we design things out, we're going to show you how to take money out of this bucket and move to that bucket. And when we do that, when I take money out of the left bucket, I got to pay tax. But then I get to move it over here and it will grow tax-free. And then next year, I'm going to take money out and move it over. I'm going to pay a little tax. I'm going to teach you how, starting now, pay a little tax now, a little tax next year, a little tax next year, a little tax next year, how it becomes a big magnifier, massive tax savings in your lifetime. Massive tax savings. Because this bucket doesn't have that 72 rules. And that bucket has no taxes now, has no taxes never. So these buckets is my way to teach you tax law, but it has nothing to do with performance. So let me just give you an example. Amazon. Let's say I'm a financial advisor. I'm going to sell you some Amazon stock. It's a good stock. We all like Amazon. Can I sell you some Amazon stock in the left bucket? The answer is yes. I can say Amazon stock in the 401k. I can say Amazon stock in the IRA. I can say Amazon stock in SEPs and 403bs. I can sell you Amazon stock in several places. Let's clean that back up. I can sell you Amazon stock in several places. Now, can I sell you Amazon stock in the middle bucket? Yes, right here in the middle. Let's just change colors. Let's go to red. I can sell you Amazon stock in the 401k. I can sell you Amazon stock in IRAs. I can sell you Amazon stock in 403bs and SEPs. I can sell you Amazon stock right here in the middle bucket. You know what? I can sell you Amazon stock in 401ks. I can sell you Amazon stock in Roth IRAs. I can get you Amazon stock in all three buckets in multiple places. If Amazon is good and you are making money, let's say Amazon's up 10%. You're going to make 10% in the left bucket. It's just going to be taxed later. You'll make 10% in the middle bucket. It's just going to get taxed this year. You're going to make 10% in the right bucket, but it's never going to be taxed. That 10% is tax-free. Amazon is what makes you money. Amazon is what loses you money. These buckets don't make money. These buckets don't lose money. These buckets are my way to teach you tax law. So, you know what? Amazon's not doing so good right now. Okay, coronavirus problem. Amazon's doing bad. Amazon, you just lost 15%. In the left bucket, you lose 15. The middle bucket, you lose 15. The right bucket, you lose 15. Amazon is the investment. Your stocks, your bonds, your mutual funds, whatever you diversify in, whatever you invest in, those are your investments. That's what makes money. That's what loses money. How you own those investments in these accounts on these buckets will dictate the rules and taxes. And that's what I'm teaching is rules and taxes. So if you want to write down some notes, you can write this down. Contributions and conversions. There are two ways for you and I to get money into a Roth IRA. The first way is a contribution. To do a contribution, number one, I have to have a job. Number two, if I have a job, my income has to be below this amount right here, single or married. If I have a job, my income's below that amount, then I can save $7,000 per year, $7,000 for me, $7,000 for my wife. I can put $14,000 in a Roth IRA in the form of what's called a contribution. I'm not talking about contributions here today. It's common sense on contributions. What I'm talking about here is conversions. See that? No rules. No job rules, no income rules, no dollar amount rules. If you have $1 million in that left tax bucket in your 401ks and IRAs, and we want to move the entire $1 million over to the right bucket, we can do that in one fell swoop. That's a lot of tax to pay all in 1 year. Don't recommend that, but you can do that. because there's no rules. So what we want to do is with the tax strategy analysis is figure out how much do we take out of the left bucket in 2020, pay a little tax on it without bumping you into another bracket. Move that to the right bucket. Next year in 2021, how much do we take out of the left bucket, pay a little tax, move to the right bucket without moving you into another bracket. Be willing to pay a little bit more tax now, because right now you are younger now than you ever will be. Every day you get older. Okay, every day is a little bit one closer to death. So the sooner you do this, there's two major advantages. Number one is we're spreading out the taxes in that left bucket for more years, and that minimizes the taxes. And number two, we have more money growing in the right bucket tax-free for more years, compound tax-free, compound tax-free, compound tax-free, in that right bucket for more years. That's a win-win. The tax analysis that we do for folks, I mean, again, we're not charging for this, but has 3 tax savings benefits. Number one is it saves husband and wife taxes in their lifetime. Number two, it saves their surviving spouse tax. So one of you dies, the other one inherits the other one's money. They're still living, but the surviving spouse no longer files a joint tax return. The surviving spouse is filing a single person's tax return. Their taxes go up. It saves them taxes in their lifetime. And number three, there's more money to be passed to kids and grandkids because we minimize the taxes. Everything in these 3 buckets will go to your kids and grandkids the way that you want them to go. Everything that they inherit that's from the left bucket is going to be taxable to your kids. And there's this new law that Trump just put into place at the end of last year that goes into effect this year. It's called the Secure Act. That new is kind of like I gotcha tax rule is now forcing the kids to pay taxes when they inherit mom and dad's money. The portion that they inherit from the left bucket is now going to have to be paid taxes over a much faster scale than what the old rules were. So there's 3 major tax savings. Save you taxes while you're alive, save kids taxes, or save the survivor spouse taxes, save kids taxes. That's what these 3 buckets are, is teaching you tax law 101 so you can understand some very basic strategies. And again, it has nothing to do with your investments. I'm not going to say that Amazon, that you own Amazon, is a good investment or bad investment. We can keep it, we can get rid of it. If you own Amazon stock in the left bucket and I want to move $20,000 of your Amazon stock out of the left bucket, move it out of the right bucket, we can do that. You never sold, never got out of the market. You still own $20,000 of Amazon. We just moved it from the left bucket to the right bucket. You just had to pay tax on that $20,000. And you're going to pay the tax anyways because the 72 rules exist. There is no way around it. Well, I guess there is one way. You just die before 72. And then somebody else will get it, and then they'll have to pay the taxes. But you've had this money all these years. You or somebody's going to pay the taxes on this money. So you understand those rules. You understand how you can drastically save on taxes. All right. So let's wrap this up. You want to schedule an appointment with me. We're going to put up the offer here in just a minute. It says schedule now. Again, what you can do is you get a chance to click a day, you get to click a time of the day, you get to put in your information, your name, your email address, that kind of stuff. Any notes that you want me to know about, you put that in there in the notes section. And then we will fire back to you a confirmation for that. And then you will get a phone call from Stacy. This is Stacy here. That's our foundation number, 913-222-5200. But we will reach out to you through your email and talk about scheduling an appointment if you haven't already done so. Some of you are scheduling appointments with us right now because you know your calendar and you want to schedule, but some of you maybe don't know your calendar yet, or you don't have your calendar in front of you, or you want to get with your spouse and you don't know your spouse's calendar. No big deal. Connect with Stacy and she'll get you scheduled. Whether you schedule with me right now electronically through clicking this button that says schedule here now, whether you do that now or Stacy needs to coordinate with you and put you out a couple weeks, we're going to honor the fact that you were here. We have record that you were on this webinar. We're not going to charge you. Okay? We're not going to charge you for our time. We're not going to charge you for the appointment. We're not going to charge you for the analysis of the Social Security analysis or the tax analysis. It's just our way to give them back. You are on this webinar because you got the invitation through Facebook. All right. All that we would ask in return is that you would go back to Facebook and put some positive comments that, man, that was an outstanding workshop. This guy talks fast, but he was awesome. I learned a ton of stuff. No pressure. I got some really cool analysis work after. I don't care what you put out there. Just go say something nice because people do read that stuff. Ruth's asking a question. What's the information that we need to have an appointment with us? Well, Ruth, we don't need a whole lot of information about other than just your Social Security, but for us to do the Social Security and tax analysis, we do need to have more. So we always tell people, have it ready and give us what you feel comfortable with giving us. But have your Social Security statement handy. Have your spouse's Social Security statement handy. Have your investment accounts, your IRAs, your 401k. Just have your statements there in front of you when you're at home or at work, and when we call you, we can start gathering some information from you. For us to be doing tax strategies, let me advise you on this. We don't want a ballpark. Okay, we're talking about in the future. We don't want a ballpark. We don't want a hypothetical because we really want to maximize your tax saving strategies. So we need to be as accurate as we can. The more information we know, the more accurate we can be. So have statements, Social Security and basement statements, have that stuff handy for that first phone call. Ask us your questions, get your questions answered. We're happy to help you there. And then we'll start asking you some questions to get to know you so that we can provide both sets of those analysis. We'll schedule a follow-up meeting with you after that to go through the analysis with you, and we will either mail you or email you copies of all of that so you can have both sets of the analysis. Denise is asking, great information. Yes, I do talk fast, OMG. Well, I'm trying to do this. This is the presentation you guys are getting is at least a 2+ hour presentation that I give in front of other financial advisors. So when I'm in public and I'm trying to do this, I'm talking fast because I got a lot of material and I'm trying to get through it all. So I apologize for talking fast. We all talk a whole lot slower when we have the one-on-one conversations with you. But before we exit off, any last remaining questions? We'll give you guys a minute to pop up any other questions that I can answer for you. Other than that, you can click let's get that offer to pop up one more time here. Let's get that offer to pop up one more time. You want to schedule an appointment with us in our office to go through this and get this information, here it is. We're going to pop it up one more time. Click the schedule here now and get on our calendar. Deanna says, wonderful and informative presentation. Thank you. Well, you're welcome, Deanna. I hope this was great for all of you. I love doing this. Hopefully you can tell the passion I have. This is one of the things that I know makes us unique compared to other advisors. We just have a tremendous knowledge on tax law and Social Security law that we like to share because all of these things intertwine with our retirement decisions. So thank you for your compliment there. Thank you for everybody being on here. Look at the list of people. We have a whole lot of people that's been on this webinar here today. Charles, yep, thank you. Appreciate your compliments. We'll leave this up just for another minute, give you guys a chance to ask any more last remaining questions, or you can click that button to schedule here. Either way, you schedule or you don't schedule, Stacy will reach out to you. And if you didn't schedule now, she'll coordinate maybe a time down the road here that we can get everybody scheduled. So other than that, I wish everybody health and safety. Thank you so much for being a part of this presentation here today. I hope that you feel that I'm looking at the clock, an hour and 20 minutes. This was a super good use of an hour and 20 minutes of your time. All right, let's go ahead. Are you knowledgeable on the Missouri retirement funds, incorporating that in your analysis? Oh, Carol, yes. Missouri, not so nice. Missouri does not like to play nicely with Social Security. If you live in Kansas, Kansas pension plays great with Social Security, but Missouri doesn't. Yes, we know a ton of stuff on the Missouri pension, Missouri teachers pension, Missouri state pension, and how that coordinates with your overall world of retirement and Social Security. So yes, we're happy to help you with that. What was that last one that popped up there? Well, hold on, here was another question here. We're trying to scroll through our screen here. How to access the Social Security site. I think that's a typo. Cindy, when we schedule an appointment or you coordinate with Stacy, if you don't have your Social Security statement, we're going to email you some instructions. It's like, here's what it is on this little piece of paper. I don't know if you can see it because of the lights, but we'll send you the instructions for this so that you can just follow these instructions, click, 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 and go right to their website and get your statements. So we'll provide that for you. Ruth, yep, you're welcome. Thank you. All right, guys, we'll exit off. Thank you so much for your time here today. You guys have a safe and great rest of your day. Take care, guys.